gods, kings, fire, and blood. Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
According to Miguel Spochnik, House of the Dragon will have a different tone from what viewers experienced with Game of Thrones. But how will it be different? In this video, I'm going to compare House of the Dragon with Game of Thrones and will discuss 10 differences between them without revealing any spoilers. So stay tuned for that. Greetings lords and ladies, 7 blessings to you. Welcome to Ultimate Book Maniac, the one-stop for book and TV series reviews. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Miguel said, "This is something else and should be something else. It's a different crew, different people, different tone. Hopefully, it will be seen as something else, but it will have to earn that. It won't happen overnight. Hopefully, fans will enjoy it for the thing that it is. We'll be lucky if we ever came close to what the original show was. So we are just putting our heads down and getting on with it and hoping what we come up with is worthy of having a Game of Thrones title." So what are these differences? Let's jump right into it. First, the power of House Targaryen.
I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter.
At the beginning of Game of Thrones, House Targaryen was almost destroyed. Only 2 Targaryen kids were left to fend for themselves. Viserys had to sell his family heirlooms, his mother's crown, etc. just to survive, leading him to eventually sell his sister to the Savages to get an army with which he could take back his family's throne and restore House Targaryen.
So tell me, sweet sister, how do we go home?
I don't know.
We go home with an army. I give him a queen, and he gives me an army.
With the death of Viserys, House Targaryen almost became extinct, with Daenerys being the last pure-blooded Targaryen left. In House of the Dragon, though, we'll get to see the full might of House Targaryen. House Targaryen was at its most powerful during the reign of King Viserys I. The kingdom has been at peace, and never so many Targaryens or dragons existed since the doom of Valyria. Second, dragons. At the beginning of Game of Thrones, the dragons have become extinct. The dragons had been gone from the world for hundreds of years.
Dragons are all dead. Been dead for centuries.
It took Dany blood magic and 3 lives to bring dragons back into the world. I've discussed this blood magic in my Game of Thrones blood magic video. I'll post the link in the description below. So Game of Thrones only had 3 dragons in it, whereas House of the Dragons will have 17 dragons. On the podcast, "The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of," George R.R. Martin said, "And of course I'm looking forward to the dragons. Obviously, I love the dragons. We had 3 of them in Game of Thrones, but now we got like 17 of them. And hopefully, they'll each have their own personalities. They'll be instantly recognizable when you see them, the colors and all of that, because the dragons do have personalities in the books, and it will be great to see that come alive. And the dragon riders. That's all pretty cool." On the eve of the dance, there were 20 living dragons. 3 of them were just hatchlings, leaving 17 fully grown dragons. I'm going to post my dragons and their dragon riders video next week, listing all of these dragons. So make sure to subscribe to this channel if you don't wanna miss it. Third, Targaryen customs and traditions. We'll get to see various customs and traditions of House Targaryen in House of the Dragons, which we weren't able to see in Game of Thrones. For example, a dragon egg being placed in his or her cradle whenever a Targaryen child is born. The child takes care of the egg until it hatches and then takes care of the hatchling. Another one was the prince or princess taking Dragonstone, which was the traditional seat of the heir apparent to the throne. We also might get to see a funeral of the dragon or the Targaryen in House of the Dragon, as we see candles around Valerian's head in the trailer.
Valerion the Dread. The beast that Aegon rode across the sea. His flames forged the Iron Throne and brought the Seven Kingdoms to heel. Powerful.
4th, Dragon Bondings. To ride a dragon, a person has to bond with the dragon. Once the dragon and the rider have bonded, that dragon will not allow anyone else to mount it while its rider lives, no matter how familiar that person might be to the dragon, unless the rider is sitting with them. That's how the custom of placing a dragon egg in the Targaryen children's cradles began, to ensure the bonding with the dragons. It's also connected with the custom of the Targaryens marrying within the family to keep the bloodline pure, which I'll discuss in a separate video. In Game of Thrones, we only got to see Dany bond with Drogon. Jon also bonded with Rhaegal, but we didn't really get to see much of their bonds. Drogon let Jon touch him, either because since he was bonded to Dany, he knew how Dany felt about Jon, or because dragons are moody creatures, just like Vhagar will do with someone in this series, which is a spoiler. As for Viserion, I'm not sure if it was a bonding or the Night King controlling him, because it's still unclear whether Viserion was a White or a White Walker. The answer will heavily depend on that. I posted my theory on whether Viserion was a White or a White Walker 4 years ago in my Game of Thrones Season 7 and 8 Q&A, Whites vs White Walkers video. I'll post the link in the description below in case you wanna check it out. A dragon and its dragon riders bond is kind of similar to the bond that the Stark kids had with their direwolves. Just like the direwolves, once a dragon is bonded with someone, it can sense the distress of its rider or the rider's death. But the dragon riders can't walk into their dragons like some of the Stark kids can. 5th, whips and saddles for dragons. In Game of Thrones, Dany managed to bring dragons back in the world. We see her riding Drogon, but she never used a saddle or a whip, probably because she had no idea how to get the saddle made and she considered the dragons as her children. But unlike Dany, the Targaryens during the dance used saddles and whips to control their dragons, kind of like horses. You can see the proof of that in this promo picture and in this leaked image of Daemon Targaryen, where you can see something that looks a lot like a whip handle on his belt. I have also heard rumors that they are sticking to the books and will use saddles for dragons on the show, so there will be whips and saddles in House of the Dragons. 6. No White Walkers or Wildlings. While we know that White Walkers, Wildlings, etc. still existed during this time period, as they were created after the war with the First One, they won't be a part of the series, unless we see the Northerners, especially the Starks, discussing the Wildlings on the show. So far, we haven't heard anything about the casting of the Starks, probably because they showed up later when the dance began. Though, the kingdoms do know about wildlings, walks, etc. as King Viserys told his grandchildren the story about his grandfather Jaehaerys flying his dragon north to the wall to defeat a vast host of wildlings, giants and wargs. 7. 6 kingdoms instead of 7. In Game of Thrones, Dorne had been a part of the 7 kingdoms, but during the Dance of the Dragons, Dorne was not a part of the Targaryen rule. It was the only kingdom which managed to avoid being conquered, although they did join the Great Council of 101 AC as observers. Briefly, King Viserys does contemplate the idea of marrying Rhaenyra to the Prince of Dorne to bring Dorne under his rule, before deciding otherwise. 8th, the Dragon Pit. In Game of Thrones, we got to see the Dragon Pit, which was in ruins. In House of the Dragon, we'll get to see what the Dragon Pit actually looked like back when it was not destroyed and used to house dragons. In fact, we'll get to watch exactly how it was destroyed. 9th, only politics. During the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, the main focus was on the struggle for power. But as the show went on, that focus shifted from interpersonal politics and scheming to bigger plot movements. That won't happen with House of the Dragon, since its whole story revolves around the war for the throne. 10th, completed story provided by George R.R. Martin. Unlike Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon already has an ending which was provided by George R.R. Martin. Although, in the books, there are several different accounts of what happened during the dance. For example, Maester Eustace, Gildain, Muncan or Ransitar, etc. have all provided different accounts of these events, and the court fool mushroom had something totally different. So the writers will have several options to choose which of these rumors they want to make true. George R.R. Martin could also tell them whose version they should pick. Whereas, in Game of Thrones, the events were already decided until they ran out of source material. Once the books ended, the writing quality went down a little bit, resulting in Season 8. This very same ending could have been considered a very good ending with only a few minor changes on the show. Even when they hadn't ran out of the source material, David and Dan went in a few different directions when they didn't have to. For example, making Jaime kill a cousin. This change was completely unnecessary. It didn't happen in the books because kinslaying is considered a really serious crime in the books. It would take something really huge to make someone resort to kinslaying, like when Tyrion did with Tywin in the books. By the way, if you wanna buy House of the Dragon books like Fire and Blood, The World of Ice and Fire, etc. or the Game of Thrones books, I'll provide their links in the description below, which will take you directly to their Amazon pages. I've already discussed what House of the Dragon is about, Como Pictures breakdown, etc. in my previous videos. I'll also post dragons and their dragon riders, 5 reasons why Rhaenyra was the rightful ruler, House of the Dragon cast breakdown, etc. videos soon. If you liked this video, please hit the like button below, share the video and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day. Bye bye. See you in my next video.